Madness, residents from all over the state and even Pennsylvania came out today for a different type of competition. Cordisco's Corner Store hosted its 5th annual Broome County Francis Cordisco Memorial Chess Tournament. Dozens of people of all ages participated in the all-day tournament. Owner John Cordisco says while chess is a very different type of tournament, it still holds exciting outcomes.
And it's great. Chess is one of those games where you can have an 8-year-old play an 80-year-old. And it happened one year where the 8-year-old actually beat the 80-year-old. And it's one of the few sports where age in physical size has absolutely zero to do with your ability.
Broome County Executive Debbie Preston and City of Binghamton Mayor Rich David made the ceremonial first moves. The competition will continue next Sunday, and anyone interested in joining can visit uschess.org.
Welcome to Tashkent 2014, one of the preliminary tournaments leading up to the candidates final for the World Championship Challenger. It's in a series, a FIDE Grand Prix series. A lot of great players in here, but especially for me is my buddy Carl Nakamura is in it, and I hope Carl does well. Anyway, folks, FIDE Grand Prix Series, Tashkent 2014. Games coming up. Hi folks, John Cordisco here. Round 3 of the FIDE Grand Prix in Tashkent 2014. One leg of the many tournaments leading up to the candidates final to determine the challenger for next year's World Championship match. This is between my buddy from the United States, Carl Nakamura, against Giri-Rd.3 from the Netherlands. Anish has come a long ways. Right now, he's right about the same rating, a little bit higher than a Carl. Carl's listed here as 27.64. Anish is 27.68. So the young kid's come a long ways. Let's see how he does in this game. Nakamura is white. Giri is black. It's going to be a Nimzo Indian, so I'll just go through the opening a little bit. Pretty much standard stuff. Queen takes, d5, e3. Computer says knight to f3, knight to e4. Queen c2 and knight c6 is definitely worth looking at. e3. I don't know much about the Nimzo Indian. I like the setup. b6. Knight. Bishop a6. Pretty typical stuff. Now, white can't take, of course. Not that he would, or he can't even push. Bishop takes, stops white from castling. b4. Now bishop takes, d takes, queen takes. This basically traded off the pawn there. It's got a tiny advantage for white on the computer. I kind of like white's setup. He's ready to castle. He's got one minor piece to develop. He's got a strong center. Queen's in a good spot. I like white. Queen of d5. Immediately it goes for a queen trade. Easy for me to say. Computer likes queen takes queen or queen to c2. Carl decides to trade queens and then bishop to d2, developing the last minor piece, and also at the same time keeping the knight out of here. He can jump all over the place here, keeps that knight out. Knight d7. Carl decides not to castle, and I agree with him. Queens are off the board. Keep your king towards the center of the board because you're going to be in an endgame. That's just at least what he's thinking. c5. D takes. B takes. Whoops. Rook to c1. I like that move a lot. Actually, a real lot. I mean, you're looking at pawn takes. Even bishop takes, knight takes, pawn takes. Rook goes here, hitting the knight and double hitting that pawn. I like that scenario a lot. Of course, he doesn't do that just for that reason. Rook to c2. He's going to double up now. Who's the other knight? C takes b4. It's slightly better than the computer, but it's so tiny a difference that that's a good move by Anish. Now, Carl's doubled up. I like that a lot. C takes, A takes. Naturally, he doesn't want to take. We'll end up trading all 4 of these rooks off, and then knight will end up being here. E5, E4. Interesting though, I think Carl is really an aggressive player, and I'm really surprised he didn't play rook to C7. But he decided to go E4 instead. F6 just to defend the pawn on E5 for black. So Carl decides to develop his bishop a little better. King starts coming up. Knight to D2. He's going to reroute his knight. Now again, I'm surprised he didn't go rook to C7. Knight to D2. Rook takes, rook takes. Rook to C8. Rook to A2. Good move. Hitting the pawn. Always make your opponent react to you if you can. Rook's up to defend the pawn. When your opponent starts reacting to you, you know you're doing okay. Knight to B3. I just decides to move the king over. I don't know what that was for, to be honest with you. I'm looking at the computer here off screen, and knight to C8 or knight to B8 are the two choices for black, and H6. King to E8. Carl continues. Then he goes knight to C8. I think black's done reasonably well here. There's a little push back, a little passive, but we'll see how it works out for either side. F3. Carl's just reinforcing his E4 pawn. I think he's waiting to see what black's going to do. Rook to B7, hitting the pawn. King to C3. Rook checks. Knight to C5. I like that a lot. That's aggressive play. Knight comes up. King to B3. Get that pin right off of there. Rook to C6. Knight to D3. Rook to D6. This is one of those positions where, I mean, what the heck do you do here? You know? It's an interesting endgame. King comes over. Rook to D7. Bishop C5. That's a good spot for that bishop. He can't be chased off for a while. Long while. So you have to move this rook in order to chase that bishop off. That's a good spot. Holds a lot of key squares too, or controls. King to D8. Bringing the king over, I think, for help. H4. King to C7. Going to be interesting to see how these minor pieces, if they do get traded off, B5. King to B8. Now that king's come a long ways. Remember, he started over here, 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 and here. That's a lot of tempos. Knight to B4. King moves again. Rook to A1. Stopping the rook from getting here and getting some counterplay. Maybe go after this pawn, or maybe just harass the king. Knight to D6. Bishop takes, rook takes. So that's one minor piece traded. Knight to C6, I like that a lot. He's threatening, of course. Rook takes. And the game is basically over. If that happens, once the king moves, this pawn falls, and this pawn will fall. The game is over. He has to react. Knight to C8. Awful passive, but he has to defend that A pawn. Hikaru goes knight to A5 check. King moves. Knight to C6 again. I think he repeated because that was move 41 for white. So he gets into time control. King to B7. Now he moves. He wants to move the rook. You can just tell. Rook to D7. Rook to A6. Now the king guards the spot, the entrance spot for the rook. You see that this square, and this square, all those squares there and this square, the rook cannot go to. So that open file is really worthless right now. Rook to C7. King comes up, checks. King to E2. Carl decides to come the other side of the board and has the king help out with the pawns. King to A8. G4. Rook B7. Gary's going after the B5 pawn. Rook defends. Knight to D6. And of course he pushes. Knight to C8, hitting a pawn again. Pawn takes. Rook B6. Rook C5. Tiny advantage for white here. That looks a lot more dangerous for black than it really is. That knight and that rook are doing excellent duty there. Knight takes, king takes, G5. Now right now on the computer it's almost dead drawn. It's a minute advantage for white. I think that's the only advantage at all is the fact that the white's king is on the same side where the pawns are. B7 for the king, king F2, and they start coming around. Takes, F4, rook E6. This is typical Carl. Get down to a rook and pawn ending and just grind it out. King F3, H5, rook D5. We'll see how the grinding goes here. King C7. You can tell Carl's trying to win. It's a dead drawn position. He's still playing on. King, rook, king to C6, F takes, F takes. For those of you that were wondering why didn't rook take instead, rook takes C5, pawn takes, king C4, and that's it. Black is busted. He has to move the king. So say he goes here. King comes over. He has to go here. King comes up. And he can't save the pawn. White will eventually get here. And after black moves, take this pawn. And the game is over. So that's why he didn't do that. F takes, king, rook. Rook finally takes. Rook G4. Check. D7. King takes. Rook H6. I'm going through this quickly here because this is your basic rook and pawn ending. It's dead drawn, but they play on. E5, rook, H7, king E8, A6 check, king F5, B6, rook takes, and we'll just go through the last few moves here. Takes, king E7, king, E6, king. Typical stuff. And they play right down to the very end. And guess what? King E6. And that's the game from round 3 between Nakamura and Giri. It's a draw. I think maybe Naka had his chances earlier with that rook to C7. Maybe some invasion with his rooks, but he decided to go the different way. And that's the way it works out sometimes. Giri's a top player. Top player. One of the top 10 in the world. So a draw, even with white, is nothing to be, is no embarrassment at all. Anyway, folks, that's the game. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank all my new subscribers. I've got over 200 subscribers now. I never thought in a year and a half, even a little guy like me with my chess videos would have that many subscribers. Thank you all for subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. And as always, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.
Chess is a game of concentration and skill. Some may consider chess old-fashioned, but it's alive and well in Broome County this weekend. Today was the 5th annual Broome County Chess Tournament in Binghamton. Players from across the area stared at their pieces, calculating the right move. The tournament organizer calls today's turnout decent, but he says he misses the days when the competition was full.
But for sit-down tournaments like this, it's hurt the numbers a little bit because people can play online, but it's still the most popular game in the world, still.
The youngest player in the tournament was Raymond Wong. He's an 11-year-old from Ithaca. He isn't ranked yet, but his competitors say he's one of the best in the area and a player to watch in the coming years.